Hello and welcome to the Windows 10 crash course. In this video, we're going to be talking about navigating the settings menu in Windows 10. So within Windows 10, the settings menu has kind of changed. You have the typical control panel, which is kind of hidden, which you may be used to if you use Windows 7 or 8 or any previous versions of Windows really, has now been adapted into a kind of modern UI for Windows 10. While it still has the basic, navigation of control panel in the same categories, there is a little bit of difference between the two, so we're going to be examining both of those. So let's jump right into it. So here we are in Windows 10, and as you'll notice, when you open up your start menu, you don't have the traditional control panel available or accessible to you within the start menu. Even if you go into File Explorer, there's no control panel shortcut to get to it. You can actually just search for it using the Windows search here. So if I search control panel, you see the desktop app comes up. So this is a control panel that you may be used to, again, if you used any sort of previous version of Windows before Windows 10. You have your system and security, network and internet, hardware and sound, programs, user account, appearance and personalization, clock, language and region, and ease of access. So of course you can go into all of these and they have their own subcategories for you to do things like backup, power options if you're on a laptop, adjust system settings. There's a lot of sub-menus within control panel, and it's a little bit of an outdated in the sense that it's using, a very, very old interface where you have to kind of go through all these different menus. If you're used to it and it works for you, then that's no problem, of course. And then you can easily use this to navigate. Of course, you can search all these things individually, but this is the old school control panel. Within Windows 10, however, they've integrated a new way for you to navigate your settings. So if you click on your start menu, you'll see the settings panel right here. You just click on that gear icon, and here is the all-new Windows 10 settings menu. Much like the control panel, you have the same basic categories. You have system, devices, network and internet, personalization, accounts, time and language, ease of access, privacy, and updates and security. So we're going to briefly glance over a majority of these. Some that require a little bit more explanation, we're going to have, in-depth videos on. For example, privacy is a pretty big one, so we'll be doing a separate video on that in the future course, or I should say in the future videos that you'll see in this course. Keep in mind also if you're looking for specific settings, so let's say you're looking for something dealing with Wi-Fi, then you can type in Wi-Fi up here and you'll get your search results. So going back, let's go ahead and start with system. So system gives you all the information about, of course, your system, your computer. You can adjust things like your display here. You can adjust things like your notifications and actions. This is related to Action Center, which we'll have a whole independent video on. So you can turn off certain toggles here very easily. You have apps and features here. So this allows you to go ahead and manage options related to apps. You can actually sort applications out on your drive here. This is very useful in the sense that you can find the biggest apps on your hard drive. So kind of similar to that of control panel when you're uninstalling apps. You can, again, sort by size here, name, install date. You can have it show all apps on a certain drive, or you can specifically search for an app and then get the information related to it here. So for example, I have the Candy Crush app here, and then I can go ahead and choose to move this or uninstall it. Now, you also have, of course, multitasking here. So this allows you to adjust features with multitasking, some of the new features that have been integrated like Snap and Virtual Desktop. Some of these they've upgraded on from the previous versions of Windows, but again, settings-wise, you can adjust all of that here if you want to turn it off or on. Tablet mode is something that's new in Windows 10, since Windows 10 is built to work, again, cross-platform against tablets, phones, etc. If you're using it on a tablet, you can enable tablet mode to make it more touch-friendly when using your device, and then you can have it remember specific things. For example, when you open it, you can have it go into the desktop or automatically switch to tablet mode depending on your preferences. Power and sleep options, very useful if you're using a Windows 10 on a laptop, so you can adjust it so it turns off after a certain number of minutes here, and you can go into additional power settings if you want to do more things. So for example, if I click this, you can change the power plan that you're using. Next to that is storage. Storage shows you everything on your PC, or I should say hard drive, as far as what's being taken up. You can look at your save locations and change the default save locations. You have offline maps, very useful for the new Windows 10 Maps app, which will also have a overview video up on this course, so be sure to check that out. You can adjust some of the settings here for map updates. Default apps are very great for setting your default for specific things. So for example, like when you open a photo, if you want it to open up in Photo Viewer, if you have a third-party app you want it to open in, you can change it here. If you want your music to open in, for example, like iTunes or Windows Media Player, you can change that here as well. And it even gives you the option, you'll notice, to look for apps in the App Store that can also interact with these specific things. So for example, a web browser, another option would be Chrome or Firefox. Now, last but not least, you have your About information. This is all relative to your actual PC, of course. So this is going to tell you all about what you have in your PC as far as like the product ID, edition, workgroup, things of that nature. All right, so that is the System tab. Now you have Devices. Devices allows you to adjust things for hardware. So for printers and scanners, you can add those in here. You can see all of the connected devices here. So this gives you an overview of everything that's hooked up. External devices like hard drives, even mice, speakers, things of that nature. You can see all of that here. Mouse and touchpad settings you can adjust here. Typing settings you can also adjust. And last but not least, autoplay settings can be adjusted here as well. Now, next to that, you have network and internet, so you can see your data usage if you're trying to keep track of that. You can set up a VPN or a virtual private network if you need to set that up for a specific reason. If you have dial-up connection, you can do that. Ethernet connection can be adjusted here. Even lets you do things like your firewall, internet options, and home group for sharing on the network. You have your proxy settings, which you can set automatically or manual if you need to set that up here. Again, so this is everything related to the network. Personalization. We're going to talk a little bit more about this in the interface tips. But again, you can adjust things like your desktop background, color scheme for Windows, so you can choose a different color. So the accent color, for example, here is blue right now. I can change that to like a red or pinkish here if I want to change that, so you can see there. Lock screen adjustment, we'll talk more about that as well. Themes, again, just overall theme settings you can adjust here. And when you start using the start menu, I should say, then you can, again, adjust certain options here. So for example, if you want to see most used apps, you can turn that on or off depending on your preferences. If you want start to go full screen, kind of how it was in Windows 8, for example, then you can adjust that here as well. So this will adjust it to that old school sort of Windows 8 look and feel. Carrying on here, we have, of course, accounts. So you can go into your account information. Again, really useful if you want to adjust your Microsoft account here. You can adjust things like your sign-in options. You can change your account password. You can set a PIN, picture password, which we'll talk a little bit more about in the lock-in screen, or lock screen, I should say, either or, video portion. You also have the ability to connect to work or school if you want to use work access. So if you're using your Windows 10 machine in a work environment or office environment, you can adjust that. Family and other users. So if you're not the only one using the computer, if you're an admin account, but you also want to set up accounts for your kids for certain privileges, you can do that here. And you can even sync your settings. So the benefit of using it with like a Microsoft account is all of your settings that you would typically set, so like your theme, your customization, ease of access or accessibility options, all of those get saved across the cloud. That way, if you ever log in on or have another Windows 10 device, you can keep it synced across. Time and language, pretty self-explanatory here, is where you can adjust like things like your clock and time zone, region and language relevant to what you speak or want to see, and your speech, language, or text-to-speech options can be adjusted here as well. Next to that, you have your ease of access, really great for accessibility. So if you want to adjust certain things, like if you want to turn on a narrator, for example, the magnifier options, high contrast options, closed captions, specific things and accessibility options with keyboard, sticky keys, toggle keys, and other settings. For example, you can enable shortcut underlines, display a warning message when turning a setting on with a shortcut. Also, mouse options, you can adjust the pointer color, pointer size, so if you need to be a little bit bigger, or numeric keypad to move the mouse button around the screen, again, depending on your preferences. And also other options. So for example, you can turn off animations in Windows or have the show Windows background on or off. You can adjust the time notifications are displayed for, and even adjust things like the cursor thickness depending on your preferences here. All right, so that's the ease of access section. The privacy section. Now, there's so much to kind of cover here and dive into as far as like the importance of what goes into this because it's so sensitive. So we're going to have a whole portion dedicated to privacy options, but just keep in mind this is where you can adjust certain things that Windows 10 has access to. For example, microphone, your GPS or location settings, account info, calendar, and more. So again, we're going to have a whole video dedicated to just that. And last but not least, updates and security. This is where you can get preview for Windows Update, Windows Defender for protecting you as far as like against viruses and malware, things of that nature. Your backup schedule, recovery, to activate your Windows 10 if you've yet to do that. And for developers, this allows you to enable developer mode. So if you're developing for Windows 10 or want to be in the development environment, then you can easily go ahead and enable that mode here. Again, so the settings menu within Windows 10, it's been redone just a little bit more simpler, cleaner. What's more beneficial of this compared to that of the control panel, it's less clicks, and it kind of gives you these really great toggles that are easy to just kind of, again, go in at a glance and then click on something and then adjust something really fast. Whereas the control panel, while it's great if you're used to it, is a little bit old school, and you kind of have to navigate through all of these things to go through, and then eventually get to the place you want, and you have to go back and back, and then again navigate through all of these menus. So it really comes down to personal preference, but if you want it to be a little bit simpler, a little bit more cleaned up, then of course you can easily just use the new settings menu because it's built in default to the start menu. So this is a look at the Windows 10 settings menu. We hope you've enjoyed. You learned a little bit about the settings and what you can adjust from there. We'll have more in-depth videos for specific sections of those, as I mentioned, so be sure to check those out. And as always, thanks for watching.